You're listening to Off to Market with Scott Farley and Hamish Chadwick.
I'm Scott, and today we have the amazing pleasure of interviewing Belinda Vesey-Brown, who I've known for many, many years. I think we were just talking about it like about 1999. We both started working at Intralux, and Belinda and I struck it off straight away because I've rocked into the car park and I was in my blue 124 BC Fiat, and there's a blue 124 CC Fiat in the parking lot, and I've gone, well, I need to find out who owns that car because it's very much like mine. Not quite as nice, but but no, we got on really well straight away. Belinda was running the graphic design section at Intralux, and Intralux was an interesting company, a challenging boss to work for, but a very, very courageous guy who developed everything in Australia, a high-end lighting product, and sold it all around the world. So exactly what we're trying to achieve these days with our entrepreneurs, and showed great courage in trying to establish this brand in Australia. That was a great export and totally Australian manufactured. So we got quite a good bond going because we were working very closely together in the same section. I was doing the industrial design and obviously the marketing and graphics was with Belinda, and obviously we had the same interest in the car. So, but then since then, Belinda has gone on to do so much more. It makes me embarrassed to see how many things she's done compared with myself. But and I'm a fairly busy sort of person too, so you can just imagine how many things that Belinda's done. So this is going to be a 3-part series because there's just so much in Belinda's scope that we could cover off on that would help our inventors and our startups, but we can't do them all. There's just too much there to do. So we're going to divide it into 3. We're going to do Belinda's got a massive knowledge base about starting businesses. She's been doing it for years, and she's got a hands-on experience. There's nothing better than that. She's done it again and again. And then she also has some very niche ways of marketing through a thing called neuromarketing and archetypes, which are really interesting to people as well, from the idea stage right through to the end marketing. So we're going to start off. This one's going to be experience building businesses. So Belinda's going to go through some of the things that have worked for her and things that haven't worked, I guess. But as a quick overview, if you might look at Belinda's bio, so Intralux, way back in '99, Kingsbury Design, and LV Reels was in that mix there. So
really?
Yeah, we did do some work
LV Reels, which Hamish works for. And then your first company was Red Eye Design in 2002, and that was a graphic design company with marketing sway to it. And you've also got a number of organisations, Entrepreneurs Organisation, you're on the board of that, and Man Up, which is a great charity organisation as well. Prostate cancer, you're both on the board of those. You've got Brio Group, which is a brand and marketing company with graphic designs. You've got Tagged PDF, which is all about making documents, public documents, visible to everybody, including the blind and people who may not be able to read as well as others. You've got Top Lock, the premises we are today, which is a new company you've just bought, which is all about electronic locking systems and reportable locking systems, and smart locking systems and security. Then you've got Brandarian, which is a branding and advertising, which has really got an interesting 5-step process there to get your brand out there. And I can't even read my writing. Remembering as well. I mean, there's so many things. I know you're part of the Fiat Club. You do all these adventures. You've got you're a single mum with a son. I mean, I just cannot believe you're Entrepreneur of the Year 2015-16. So we're very, very lucky. There's a whole host of other awards here. We're very lucky to have you here. And look, I mean, I'm just going to start you off. And you've started so many businesses. What's worked and what hasn't? If you're a startup and you're going to come along here and you want to start your own business, what do you have to do to make it work, and what you should make sure you don't do?
Thanks, Scott. I always love listening to you do an intro for me. I always feel so good about myself afterwards.
You should.
I do like business, which is why a lot of those I have started from scratch and some I have bought into. But when you are starting them from scratch, I guess the thing is that I see, from me doing it many, many times, but also working with businesses who come to me to help me market them, is that having that proven concept or having the idea, but actually then finding out what you can do to get something to market quite quickly is the key, because you can spend a lot of time and a lot of money up front and you just waste it if no one actually wants to buy it. You get so passionate about I think my idea is amazing. I think everyone will want to buy it, and we always go with these rose-coloured lenses on. I sort of call them, we're looking through the world, where everything's going to be great, and it's not always the case. And the thing with when you're starting a business, you can actually have your house on the line. I see a lot of people borrow against their house to inject in $100,000 to get going, and I think you can do something from a rapid prototype perspective where you can get out there and see who wants to buy it and at what price point. So that's the first step is that, do you have that proven concept?
So we'll stage things. So sometimes the business is this, and we start back here, we call it the lowest hanging fruit.
Yes, the low hanging fruit.
So something you can get to market with the most cost effectively, that's got the best chance of making there's a sore point in the market. You'll find that point. You'll find out how to get to that point cost effectively. Start making income and grow into the others.
Yes.
So that's
definitely. So definitely start with the low hanging fruit. And what do you know about those audiences? So I like to think about those audiences and their behaviours. It's so easy to say, oh well, they're women aged 20 to 30, who live in this and have this type of education and have this many children. But sure, once you've done that, but then I challenge you to always go deeper. So what are their behaviours? What are their values? What are their needs that whatever it is your product or your service is fulfilling on for them?
Yeah, if it is at all.
And if it is at all. And then how do you communicate that story? Because that's really your next phase, is that brand positioning, which I know, Hamish, is all about, the stories that you're telling to attract those right people that come ready to buy. So then once you've mopped up all of your low-hanging fruit, then if you get your brand right, then more people you can be seen and heard by those who literally come ready to buy. And it really is, there is a scientific process behind it. You manufacture that in your marketing.
And so you do focus groups, or how do you find this information? It's obviously fairly deep information. Is it simply observation, or is it getting people in, speaking to them?
The thing about, and I
belting it out of them.
The thing, that's right. Well, the thing is that when you ask people why they bought something, what they tell you is not really the real reason. I've found. So people will spend a lot of money on focus groups, and they'll ask questions. Hey Scott, I like your watch. I see it's a Rolex. Why did you buy that Rolex watch? And then you might say something like, well, Belinda, I've always wanted a Rolex watch, and I like this feature, I like this benefit, right? And then I'm thinking, oh, well, that's the reason he likes these features and benefits. Whereas what we know about human behaviour is that you bought that watch to fulfil on a need, and the need was possibly, because the Rolex, acknowledgement. You want somebody to go, oh, hey, Scott, love your watch. You must be really successful, is what they're really saying. And that's why you buy it. So when you do focus groups, you actually, nobody is generally going to come out and tell you, oh, well, I like people to think that I'm amazing and I like them to acknowledge me. But really, that is where the buying decision was made. We simply then rationalise it. The brands are actually set up that way.
Is aimed more at not the actual what this watch is. It's about what it'll give you as far as what your outcomes.
What's the need that it's fulfilling on?
Going to be. I guess for me as a product developer, I'll actually try and walk in the shoes of the consumer. So depending on, it doesn't matter who it is, I really try and morph myself into their lifestyle and what they're trying to achieve at it. Is this something you employ as well, or do you have other methods of trying to get into the psyche of because it's really important, really who you're selling to is one of the most critical things when you're developing a product and when you're marketing to that group. Getting into the shoes of the customer is certainly a really good way of thinking about it. But another thing that we do is we call it brand peers and playmates. So you might be selling brand
a Rolex.
Peers and playmates.
Brand peers and playmates. So you might be selling
as fast as I do.
Sorry, I do. I have. That's all right.
You got to have. Hamish normally translates for me. Right. This big baritone voice.
So brand peers and playmates. So if your product or your service sits in a certain area, if your brand was a person, and this is what we get people to try and think about, your brand was a person, what would be the other brands that associate with? And then what do we know about those brands? So, for example, if you're, we've done one of men's cologne. So if we're selling men's cologne, of the type of person, if that was a person, and we actually even give them a name and stereotype them, and we even do pictures and behaviours on that brand, then we'd say, well, then what car would that brand drive. If that, we've given him a name, George. So what car would George drive? Well, George would drive, a Mercedes, and and then, what drink would George have, and what sorts of people, and what values does George have, and what does he do in his spare time? And we start to form a bit of a personality type, if you like, that is the filter for what we run all of our marketing through when we're starting to talk about messaging, even where we position it, what stores we would sell it through, and so on, because we understand it as a human. And that's the fundamental thing about behaviour, is that we are all human and we all relate to each other like we are now, right? And then so if I can make my product, which has been inanimate up until now, something I've crafted, and make it, give it a personality and humanize it, then it makes it easy for someone to relate to it. This feels right. They get me. I will buy this.
And this is chemistry you've spoken
about. That's the chemistry. Yeah. So you actually we are, manufacturing that chemistry.
Yeah, sure. No, that's great. And obviously, there's technical parts of setting up a business. You have to certainly develop, infrastructure and all the rest of teams and everything you've talked about. So I know you've got a bit of a list there. I'm not sure you want to go into it. Is there anything, we really want to try and keep this a little bit succinct. People can always reference you and look up you've got plenty of information on the internet. They know your name now. Brio is probably the first reference, is it?
Yeah, Brio or Brandonian.
They can look at both those areas. There's heaps and heaps. As I said, there's just so much there that we can only scratch the surface in a podcast.
And I welcome you if you have an idea. I think in Australia we need to get more of our ideas out into a global market. So I'm always happy if you buy me lunch or buy me breakfast to pick my brain.
Yep.
If I can help. But
obviously there's products come to me and clients come to me, and sometimes the idea is good, but the business structure's not working. We always try and make sure there's a pipeline out. If you're going in, first thing we do, the clients come to me are qualified through third parties to start with, and then they come to me and I qualify them again. I interrogate the idea. I'm very critical, and we've talked about it a number of times. We don't want people starting businesses that are going to fail. Businesses fail, you can't help it, but we don't want to start with a bad egg and work on, try and polish that turd.
There's
no point in it. So we're not into that at all. We set criteria to sort of make sure that the product is viable, or if it's not, we make it viable. If we see a good market need, there's usually a first starting point, and it's not just a want, it's a need. It's a sore point. It's something that needs fixing.
Yes, and I think that
saves money in some way. It's a better alternative to what's already happening.
That's a key thing that you've just said there, is that you really want to market on the need, not as much on the want. The want, if you can, you can, but if you get it back to the simple need, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, how does it create more safety? How does it, give you protection or love or whatever what that need is that your product fulfills on, then that's fundamental.
Yeah. We also quite often try and pair people with the business. So sometimes the mentors are really creative people, but they've got no business experience. It's a little bit deadly to either we pair them with a business person or an investor who's a business oriented, or we take the idea, we package it up as a licensing deal so they don't get involved in the business, or we might manage the manufacturing and they can distribute, which is a much lesser level of business operation, because you're basically just supplying a need, fulfilling an order. What sort of levels do you get involved with? Are you mainly interested in just starting up a full company and scaling it up and on selling it or running it to make a profit?
Well, it depends on the creator, because you're generally dealing with that creator who's come up with the idea, and you always know that the creator is then sometimes they get in their own way, and you need to they need to have a role, and need to understand their role, because when you start a business, you end up, if you literally are a startup, you're wearing all the hats. You're doing finance one day, you're doing marketing the next day, you're creating something, you're prototyping, you're wearing all those hats. The idea is that as you grow, as you've got your proven concepts, then you get more people on board and then you put in those specialties. And I always like to hire people that have more skills in those areas than I have. But I've at least sat in the seat, and there's a bit of a system for quality.
Yep.
So then you grow that operating team is really the third step in a good business model. But it is about then who you bring in. one of the discussions we've been having lately is then you get a CEO or a general manager and run the business. And again, you want to employ someone who's done that many, many times. They have all the skills that you just don't have. And this is about being self-aware too. You know, I'm really great at this, but I'm really bad at that. So I want to get this person who has those skills that, one, I'm definitely missing, and two, has the experience on the board where he's taken a concept like what we've created, and then they then run the day-to-day. They run the team. You know, you find yourself, this is the worst thing about it, you know, for an entrepreneur or a creator of something, is that then they find themselves like dealing with people's sick leave and, you know, this person was away and then this happened.
It's
and
not their core.
The thing wasn't, and then you just get...
They're better off in a role where they're developing the next product.
Yeah, because that's where the innovation happens. And that's
in fact,
really...
if I looked at my business is just a wage generator for my third-party stuff. But if I was to develop that product, that business up myself as a proper going concern, I would have a CEO who goes out, generates the work and runs day to day, and I'd be developing the new ideas. You continually
innovate. Yeah, that's right, because without innovation...
That's where my flow is.
Yeah. Because that's why I'm watching Apple for that, because, you know, their main innovator has died. You know, Steve Jobs has died, and you know, who's innovating now? And he was very much, you know, then they kicked him out of the business, you know, as the story goes. So he was, and that was what he was really good at, and had everyone else connecting the dots around to getting the product then to market.
Yeah. So Top Lock, this is the company we're sitting in now. That's a little bit outside your core competency. You're obviously very knowledgeable about marketing, graphic design, brand awareness, and business development. Top Lock is a electronics security company, so providing all the locks and security systems for the next stage of what was the key and barrel sort of systems. How have you found moving into an area which is a hardware type of company rather than a knowledge-based company, a service provider?
Yeah, that's really interesting, and sometimes I really love that business the most, because whatever I sell as a marketer, they can't call on me to go out and go and fit a lock anywhere, because I am not a locksmith, right? So I feel incredibly lucky from that perspective, and coming in as knowing you know how to run a business, and then seeing an industry. And what I like about locksmithing is that it hasn't been disrupted in like forever. I mean, we still have keys that, you know, mechanical keys that we open, you know, our doors with. In fact, our cars generally have more technology than our houses and our businesses. So there is this incoming tide, and that's what I like about it. And we have the opportunity by me actually owning a business, instead of helping people market, I'm actually helping market a business that I actually have a share in. And that's what becomes, that's exciting. And so by then disconnecting yourself, I'm actually putting myself in the shoes as if I am the CEO, in a way, because I have some skills on how to run a business, and then I'm just purely looking for that opportunity, and that's what's exciting. For a creator type of person.
From a branding perspective, obviously, because it's disruptive, and this is where I have a lot of trouble, or not trouble, but this is the challenge for my industry, where it's all disruptive. Pretty much any project I work on is disruptive. It's change, 100-year change. It's first of world change. It's fantastically challenging, but from a marketing perspective, you've got an educational part of it. So people don't know about it. You've got to educate, which is actually quite an expensive process, because you have to. You're taking zero knowledge and implanting it, whereas before you might, if you're evolving, there's already the knowledge base to a point, and then you're just saying, hey, this is better than that. You can benchmark and compare. With innovative and disruptive products, you know, you're coming in and saying, you've never needed this in your life before, but now it's a bit like Apple. Like, you know, Apple came across, you know, you imagine that boardroom meeting, you know, all the phones at the time had a small screen, buttons all over them, and you go along to the boardroom and say, we're going to develop a product with no buttons, a massive screen. You would have been kicked out. You know, it would have been seen as ridiculous. But almost every project I work on, and obviously this industry you're in now, you're sort of almost, you know, you're benchmarking new stuff. So there's a lot of education and cost. What's the most effective way to get the best bang for buck to educate a market before you start selling to them?
Well, this is where, if you are disruptive, so your marketing can be disruptive, and I know we're going to talk about that later, but, you know, taking an archetypal approach. So I work with quite a lot of brands that want to be disruptive. You know, if they be service or in the safety industry, or if they've got a product which they want to be disruptive, then something like an archetype, like a rebel archetype, where you become a challenger brand. And that's certainly what Apple did. I mean, you know, computers shouldn't be boring beige boxes.
Dyson, the same.
Yeah, and well, Dyson's actually a creator brand, whereas he created a whole new way, and then and then it's the way you sell it. So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Right? So this is a whole different way of drying your hands if you take Dyson. It's a whole different way of consuming music if you think of Apple, or the way that your computer should look or behave. And so they were very disruptive at the time, and all of their marketing and all of their messaging, we talked about low-hanging fruit before. So if you know who those people are and then you are disruptive in their space, you can be really targeted in your ads, but you get their attention by fulfilling on a need that they didn't even know was possible.
Cool.
And that's the fun of marketing, right?
Yeah. No, it's very difficult. I mean, what sort of campaigns? Like, how do you go to that? Because it's basically everybody you're aiming at, aren't you? Like, everyone's your market. Well, anyone who owns a house.
Well,
you know,
for
the lot, you really got to saturate. And how do you manage to get your message to so many people effectively, cost effectively?
Well, that again, we niche.
Archetype.
Yeah. So then we niche. So we say, well, we know that we can have a lot of cut through with, if the buyer is say a family man or and they have a certain type of house in a certain type of area, then they're the early adopters of technology as it is, and then they want to have those smarts where they can pre-program when someone comes in, or with knowing when people are coming home. Or from a business perspective, it could be about capturing, who's coming in if you're a facilities manager, who's coming in and who's not.
Who's on time.
Yeah, or even controlling the access to like the pool area, which might be rooftop, and it can only has the capacity for 150 people on that level. So the system is actually controlling, only 100 lets 150 people in, and then it locks until someone comes out. So you're actually, controlling safety. So they have an actual need that you are then just simply telling the story to. And sometimes I think, especially if it is B2B, so if you've developed a product and you want to get it into
business to business,
so business to business, as opposed to business to consumer. So if you're going directly to, say, a distributor, then you would then go in and actually target who you want to distribute your product, and then you would literally go in with a pitch. So instead of doing, everyone thinks about, I'll have to get an ad or I have to do this. You could actually just get a meeting and go in with a pitch. And again, there's a whole science behind how you structure a pitch to get people's attention. And then you leave them with a buying decision at the end. No more than 20 minutes is my rule of thumb for pitches. But, again, that's a whole other
I know who you
talk to me about.
We always try and, in the business meeting, in the business discussions, we talk about how to first go forward. So, for an example, we did a rotating rod holder recently. It's first of all, rod holders in boats, fishing rods, are locked in one position. It's when you push a button, you turn it around. Our business plan was to go top end, so go to high end manufacturers of boats, aim at CEO.
Yes.
So the CEO level of OEM, so original equipment manufacturers of high end boats. And we offer that to them, and they go, wow, we've got this thing that no one else has got. They advertise it. So it's top-down marketing.
Yes.
So the marketing was able to educate and get credibility from the top down. And then we had fallbacks if that didn't work. And fallbacks are very important, because not every time... Marketing is about having a shot at something, and if it doesn't work, you've got to second plan. So we have 2 or 3 tiers, right down to selling the thing on Amazon, you know what I mean? So
that's right.
And because he was manufacturing it, all those options were open to us. If he wasn't manufacturing, then we'd be stuck with licensing options. But that's important for me to know what are our options, and you've probably got much more knowledge about that than I do.
But that's absolutely right, Scott, is that you do need to just keep knocking on people's doors, but have a list of all the people that could potentially fit stock. And I had a client once, I think he had 200 and something knockbacks before he got someone buying, and then he ended up getting investment.
It's not uncommon.
Because he got it to a certain level.
But you need a budget for that. That's one area people don't forget to budget for, is this whole trying different avenues of marketing till one really strikes. Cool. That's great. Any other things you'd like to say about what not to do? Because we really need to wind up a little bit. But is there things that you really just say, look, no, what really kills? What's the best way to throw $100,000 into the wind by starting a business incorrectly?
By going a scattergun effect, for sure. Because you can, if you think of their last election campaign where Trump got in, they were spending $1 million a day, getting people, not everyone has that level of money. So you can waste a lot of money by doing that scattergun. So be really targeted, be really specific in your messaging, and test and measure everything.
Yeah, right.
So what are you learning about the behaviours of your audience?
Yeah.
if it's working or not working, you're still learning. That's my motto. You're either winning or learning.
Yeah.
So, really get that into everything. What to have when you go and do a pitch to, your high-end boat guys.
Yep.
What's their feedback? And then how do you solve that problem?
Yep. Yep. No, that's great. As I said, there's a wealth of knowledge in this little brain over here. And we've only got so much time in the day, so look, we've got 26 minutes in. I think we should call it. I'm sure if anyone wants any more information, there is just so much to learn from Belinda. Look onto one of the websites. Brio Group is probably the biggest, BRIO Group, and Brandonian are the two sort of most prominent brands out there. And there's just, even my quick view of those two sites earlier, I got overwhelmed with what questions to ask Belinda. So go along. She's very approachable, a wealth of knowledge. And I'm sure you get some really good feedback from her.
You've been listening to Off to Market with Scot Farley and Hamish Chadwick.